Hello everyone, welcome to the Tristar Gym channel. As usual, please give me a thumbs up for sound and let's get started. Thank you all for tuning in. Today we're going to be talking about Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz post-fight analysis. If you haven't seen the fight already, make sure to close this video because we're going to be talking all about it. This is going to be a spoiler video talking about what happened. We're going to dissect this fight and discuss. Okay, guys, I got thumbs up. Thank you, Kubesi, Tulip. Thank you very much. Thank you, T Max. All right, guys. Let me give you guys my initial thoughts on the fight, and then we'll open it up to comments and questions, and kind of do a two-way streak here. Okay. So first off, I thought it was going to be more of a back and forth war. I did favor Masvidal in the early rounds and Nate in the later rounds. As you all know, those of you who watched the fight, we didn't get to see those later rounds. I didn't think there would be a finish per se. Unlikely to have a finish because both guys are so durable. And I can't remember the last time either one of those two individuals was submitted or KO'd. Two very durable fighters. However, I did think that Masvidal was going to bank in at least 3 of the 5 rounds. After watching round 1, I was very impressed with his ability to knock Nate down. He had Nate knocked down within about a minute. For those of you who saw the fight, you saw him connect a beautiful right hand. And as Nate was kind of ducking, he threw that head kick that cut Nate open. That infamous cut. Nate has had that cut many, many times in his career. Just in his last fight with Pettis, he had the same cut on the same side. It was on the other side. It was on the right eye. And this time he ducks down, gets kicked. Massive cut opens up. Masvidal wins round 1. No question about it. He did some ground and pound, some good work on the ground and pound. Even when Nate stood back up, it was the body kicks and the strikes from Jorge Masvidal. Nate did do some nice work with the hands. He did land a 3-punch combo at one point, but it didn't seem anything significant. It didn't seem like anything too significant. Jorge had quickly clinched him and kind of smiled and kind of played around, and he was kind of smiling because the crowd got all excited, and he seemed very calm, very poised. He didn't seem like he absorbed any damage. In the second round, it was more of the same. Nate this time worked more. I would say Nate was pressuring in round 1 and he couldn't get any hands going. But in round 2, he did get his hands going a little bit more. He connected on Jorge Masvidal a little bit more. But Jorge was able to not only kick him to the body. Again, a ferociously powerful kick. He also landed an overhand right. He dominated the striking. He landed the bigger shots. And then, of course, he landed a takedown on Nate. Nate tried to scramble and reverse him, but Jorge seemed to show the superior grappling as well. Superior striking, superior wrestling, and then even superior grappling. On the ground, he out-scrambled Nate to get on top. And then we had round 3. Round 3 was another very good controlled round for Masvidal, but it was a little bit less. And you could see that Masvidal was maybe slowing down a little bit. And we were wondering, hey, is round 4 going to be more interesting? Is it going to be a Nate Diaz round? Is Nate Diaz going to do what he does and turn it up in the later rounds? Well, according to Nate, he was just about to get started. He was just about to get started fighting. And I believe him in a way. I know he was pressuring Jorge. Like if you watch the fight in round 1, he was pressuring. Round 2, he was pressuring. Round 3, Nate was trying to pressure. But he wasn't throwing a lot. He was just trying to get Jorge to work. I don't think it was a great strategy because I don't think Jorge was going to gas out. Honestly, he already banked in 3 rounds, so you'd have to finish Jorge in rounds 4 or 5. And I see that as very unlikely. Very unlikely. Anytime Nate finishes somebody, it's always with volume punches. It's never with a one-shot knockout, drop the guy, put him on a stretcher type punch, you know. It's volume and he worked the guy. Sometimes he'll daze you and he'll just keep his hands on you. I just didn't think he had it in him that night to do it to Jorge. So what happened, we all know after 3 rounds, the referee stops the fight because of the cut. And I want to talk about that as well. When I first heard that they stopped the fight, I didn't get a good look at the cut because the camera was zoomed out. So I was thinking, hey, maybe it's one of those cuts where, I don't know if, I'm hoping you guys never seen this, but I have, where when you're cut here, you can see the bone. It does happen. I've seen guys get cut and you could see the bone. And when you could see the bone, oftentimes the doctors will stop it. Why? I'm not sure. I don't know why the exposure of the bone is more dangerous. For me, it makes sense because to me, it's not something I really enjoy looking at. Maybe they think it's going to get infected. I don't know. But they stop it. Usually when doctors see the bone, they stop it. Now, I couldn't get a good look. When they stopped it, I also could understand that they stopped it in New York. I know they've had kind of a bad year in boxing. There's been a few deaths. And also Adonis Stevenson, who fell into a coma. I think they were more worried about the health of Nate Diaz. I personally think when it's a title fight, and it was a title fight, maybe it's not an official title fight, but because it was a title fight, personally, I don't think they should have stopped it. I think if this fight was in Vegas, they would not have stopped it because Vegas will tend to let the fights go on further. However, in New York, and understanding that they've lost also a boxer that was from New York, and I think that's the current vibe in New York right now. They've had too many deaths in combat sports, and they're going to be a little bit more careful from here on in. I didn't think they should stop the fight. I didn't think that it was too one-sided, the fight. It was one-sided, but not so much that I would stop the fight, and definitely not on a cut. Now, I didn't examine that cut myself, but I saw it afterwards. And I didn't see it. It wasn't gushing blood. Yes, it was in a bad spot. It was over the eye. I keep pointing to my left eye, but it was on Nate's right eye. It was on a bad spot, but it wasn't gushing blood. The cut man really did a great job. The cut man did a phenomenal job, and he neutralized the bleeding. He put the Vaseline. He got it in there. If you get the Vaseline in there and you pack it in, you can stop the bleeding. And he did. I thought that it was not dangerous to his vision. So those are my thoughts on the fight, guys. I want to open it up on Nate Diaz versus Masvidal. Let's not jump in on any other topic just yet. Let's do the Masvidal Nate Diaz fight, and then we can open it up to anything you guys like. Coach, the fight was great. That's from Marco Castro. Yeah, I did think the fight was great. It was a great fight, even though I thought it was going to be more competitive. I did favor Masvidal in this fight. I did, people were asking me who I thought. I thought Masvidal would be too big, too athletic. He's more of a natural 170, but I didn't think it would be so one-sided. I thought Nate would get things going a little bit more. Kobe Chaos. Masvidal hits so hard. Yeah, I do agree. Masvidal is a great striker. He's a phenomenal striker. He's in great shape. He's a 5-round fighter for sure. Like, he can do 5 rounds at a high pace and hit hard all the way to the 5th round. I definitely think that he would have dominated rounds 4 and 5. I think Nate would have got things going a little bit more, but I still thought those were going to be Masvidal rounds. Thoughts on Masvidal faking the flying knee? That's from Bilal Kharis. I loved it. I thought it was a pretty good idea. I didn't think he would hit Nate with it because Nate is so tall, and when Nate saw that, he kind of like right away freaked out and got out of the way. He did a quarter turn, ran out of the way. Which is wise because Masvidal does, he's got an incredible flying knee. So it was kind of funny, it was kind of funny that he tried that. But I think he was just playing around. I don't think he thought he could hit Nate with it. But hey, if Nate kind of ducked in a bad way, maybe he continues and knocks him out with it. That would have been 2 incredibly historic knockouts in a row by Masvidal. Tom says, those body shots were brutal. I agree. He hit him to the body with a kick, 2 kicks, one really significant one in round 1, one really significant body kick in round 2, and also he hit him to the body with the uppercut to the body shot, hook to the body. Those hooks to the body really hurt Nate. You could tell because Nate switched stance. When he got body kick, he switched stance. Nate kind of reacted in a way that, it shows it hurt, but Nate had a great poker face. I think that hurt more than he let on. Way more than, because I'm telling you, I've been hit with body shots. And it's not fun. And those were he dug deep on those body shots. Those were deep, hard body shots, especially the 2 body kicks before that. Then you get punched to the body real hard. And it wasn't one of those little tip tap shots. No, it was a shovel hook to the body. What could have Nate done better overall? That's from Mercy Hale. Mercy Hale, you know what? I would have liked him to counterpunch a little more. He had a longer... I wouldn't know if he has a longer reach per se on paper, but in my eyes, I thought he did have a longer reach. I would have liked him to use his jab more, maybe counter punch Masvidal a little bit, because he was getting countered by Masvidal. Every time he tried to throw or pressure Masvidal, he was getting countered. I thought it would have made more sense for him to counter Masvidal since he had the reach. Rego Leo, thank you. I think I missed a super chat. Let's see here. Guys, please keep your super chats on the fight. Retention for ultimate personal growth. That's from Pali Sosa. Pali Sosa, I'm not doing potential personal growth right now. You got to keep the questions, please, on the Masvidal Nate Diaz fight. Okay, crazy how Masvidal is 34 and improving. That's from SDG. No, it's not crazy. You can keep improving. Why shouldn't you be able to improve at the age of 34? I think that's kind of a myth. People think that, oh, all your improvements going to happen at an early age. I think if you start at 34, yeah, that's really late. However, if you've been training for many, many years from your youth, at 34, there's still plenty of things to learn. Your body is ready to adapt. What are your thoughts on how USADA handled Nate's positive test? That's from Chris Gamble. For those of you who don't know, Nate Diaz supposedly tested positive. He was was it tested positive or was it a they said he flagged the test. Okay, so I guess he did test positive for some kind of substance. I think it's called SARS. I think from what I understand, guys, I'm probably totally wrong. I know very little about steroids and all these things. I heard it's kind of like a pseudo steroid. It's kind of like a steroid, but it's not as strong or something like that. Turns out they say that it was from one of his tainted supplements. Tainted supplements. He popped for a tainted he popped because he took a tainted supplement. Now listen, I had a feeling that fight was gonna go on, and then we're gonna put that fight to bed over a little test. Now, why? Because none of us think Nate Diaz takes steroids. Nobody, not even the guy who pulled the test out and was like, "Hey, this guy's on some kind of steroid." I don't believe he's on steroids. Jorge Masvidal doesn't believe he's on steroids. UFC doesn't believe he's on steroids. I don't think anybody believes he's on steroids. Why? But the guy looks totally natural. His performance seems like he's a hardworking, talented guy, but he doesn't seem like a freak athlete. He doesn't seem like he's overly muscular. There's no signs. And again, this is purely highly unscientific. I totally understand. He doesn't seem overly strong. He doesn't seem overly explosive. He's your average good athlete. Good. I'm not saying your average Joe on the street who doesn't train. A good average athlete. His success comes from his skill, his toughness, his heart, his durability. It doesn't come from explosive strength, athleticism. Now, I understand this doesn't sound scientific at all. It's not. It's not meant to be. I'm just telling you. In the MMA community, we don't consider Diaz to be a guy who's on any performance-enhancing drugs. Why? It's just a hunch we have. Okay, many people who roll with him, wrestle with him, box with him, nobody comes out saying, "Hey, that guy is like, he can't be natural." It's just the vibe we have in our community. This guy is totally natural. Marco Castro, coach, you are the man. Wow, thank you, Marco. Thank you. Could his strength in cardio be a disadvantage in strength? That's from Marco. Marco Castro, I'm going to grant you that question because you gave me such a great compliment. Could his strength in cardio be a disadvantage in strength? I think what you're saying is working your cardio so much, could that kill your strength levels? I would agree, Marco. Yeah, this is true. This is true. Who's next for Jorge? That's from Matt P. I would love to see him fight Colby Covington, whether Colby Covington wins or loses. I think that would be a great fight. Coach, I'm a purple belt. This is from Marco again. Okay, Marco, I'm going to give you this one again. Coach, I'm a purple belt. I'm here with my Simpei. I don't know what a Simpei is. You need to watch the protest in Chile. Well, I haven't heard about the protest in Chile, but after this, I'll check it out. And next time I'll be more informed. Okay, we got a super chat. I tried to meet you so many times this week, and you're so hard to find. Every time you come to New York City, you disappear in the world of mystery. Happy for Kevin's victory. That's from Anaconda Saint Kulev. Yes, thank you, my friend. I really appreciate that. And yes, when I'm in New York, normally you'll find me at the Hensel Gracie Academy, but I didn't go there this time because I was supremely busy, and the opponent of Kevin has trained there in the past, and I don't want to interfere. Maybe he was training there. I don't want to take a chance to bump into them. I want to give them their space. That's the place where they're probably doing the final touches of the preparation. I know he trains elsewhere as well, but I know he's also trained at Hensel, so I wanted to make sure that I don't interfere with their training. All right, guys, what else we got here? We are doing Masvidal versus Nathan Diaz. ABC asks, Kobe versus Masvidal, your thoughts? I think it's a very interesting fight because they know each other very well. If Masvidal can keep it standing, I think he wins. I think he wins, no doubt. But I don't know if he can keep it standing. I will give him like let's say a 45% chance he keeps it standing long enough to do what he has to do on the feet. Hey, Coach, what's Masvidal's strength and weaknesses in your opinion? That's from Maelstrom. You know what? I'm worried that if he fights like Usman or Kobe, he just gets taken down over and over again. He doesn't get finished. He doesn't get hurt. He just gets outpointed. I think in a no time limit street fight or no time limit fight, I think Masvidal wins those fights. I think he wins those fights because he has the ability to finish. However, in a 5-round fight, I think those wrestlers are smart enough to bank in 3 rounds and kind of secure a victory, but that time limit is kind of a safety net. What else we got here? All right, I gotta put a guy in timeout. Pardon me. Put this guy in a timeout. Nate was robbed. That's from Gypsy King Fury. I don't know if he was robbed. In boxing, sometimes it's really interesting. Like if you do a certain amount of rounds and there's a stoppage because of a cut or something, they go to the cards. I think UFC needs something like that. It would have went to the cards. Let's say it went to the cards. Let's say after 3 rounds are in and somebody can't continue because of an eye poke or a kick to the crotch or a cut. We don't stop it on the cut. We go to imagine Masvidal was cut. And he won all 3 rounds, very dominant. And then they stop it. You would think, hey, that cut had, let's say it was a gash from a headbutt or something. You would want to go to the scorecards because the fighter who won those 3 rounds, he was very likely to win the fight anyway. Give it to him. I think we needed something like that. They should have went. The fight is stopped. We're going to the scorecards. The score is 30-27, unanimous for Masvidal. I think people will have more peace. I think it would be less controversial and better for the sport. I think we need a rule like that, where if the 3 first rounds are completed in a 5-round fight, and you can't stop the fight because of an eye poke or a cut. You can stop a fight due to an eye poke or a cut or an accidental headbutt or something that, the doctor says this guy can continue. It should then go to the cards. Question, what do you think sparked Jorge's improving so dramatically recently after a couple of losses in 2017? He seems so technical and quick now. That's from Jason Fan. Jason, I agree with you. He's improved. I think, once you lose 2 fights, you get that fire in your belly again. And you're like, let me self-reflect. Let me think of what I've been doing. Let me make some changes. And you go and you make changes. And this is very common in MMA. You'll see this all the time. Absolutely. I think you see it in all sports. Super chat. If JM doesn't fight Kobe, what if Conor/Canelo? Money. That's from Tulips. I would love to see him fight Canelo in boxing. That would be really interesting, but I'd be scared for Masvidal, to be honest with you. I think it's a bit dangerous, but it would be something I tune in for. However, I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think it's one of those fights you want to take. Like the McGregor Mayweather fight is something I think it makes more sense because Mayweather is not a kind of guy who will lays you out on a stretcher. But Canelo is, and that could be a fight-ending career. A career-ending fight, I should say. Okay, there's another good example why you don't want to get hit in the head too hard. You don't want to fight a guy like Canelo. I think it's too. I mean, it would be a very popular fight. However, the BMF champ versus Canelo, that would be an easy fight to sell. However, very dangerous. Hey, coach, do you think Jorge has the best boxing in UFC? That's from Philip Demers. Philip Demers. Hold on a second while I do that thing where I make the screen bigger, the text bigger. All right, my button pushing skills, my friends. I know command and the plus sign together makes the text bigger, easier to read. Hey, coach, do you think that Jorge has the best boxing in UFC? That's from Philip Demers. Look, I think he's up there. I don't think he's the best boxer in UFC. It's hard to say. There's so many good punchers in UFC. I honestly would tell you that probably McGregor is the best puncher in UFC. If I had to choose one guy off the top of my head, I would pick McGregor right now. However, there are guys out there who are very dangerous punchers. I would say Jorge is among the elite. Hey, coach, if you were cornering Nate Diaz, hypothetically, would you suggest him to pull to close guard given his superior jiu-jitsu compared to Masvidal? Thanks, all the best. That's from Matt Garrity. Matt, no, I would not suggest he pull guard. I think pulling guard would just get him beat up. Jiu-jitsu and MMA is two different things. Jiu-jitsu guard, I think, is only good when you're trying to stand up and the guy's trying to hold you down. He's scared of your standing up. He doesn't want to let you stand up. So as you're standing up from the guard, he kind of grabs onto you. When he grabs onto you, now you can kind of sweep him, submit him. You can counter his behavior. However, Masvidal, if Nate pulled guard, Masvidal will just kind of posture and just kind of punch Nate, like we saw in round 1, like we saw in round 2, and like we saw in round 3. Okay, he was very comfortable on top of Nate. I don't think Nate's jiu-jitsu was so vastly superior. As a matter of fact, if we look at all the exchanges on the ground, Masvidal got the better of the exchanges. So why would you say that Masvidal's jiu-jitsu was not as good as Nate's? Why are you? It seems like you're saying that you're claiming that Nate's jiu-jitsu is superior. Well, if it is, it didn't show. Okay, we didn't see evidence of that. Now maybe later in the fight he gets a good position. Sometimes in jiu-jitsu you can go back and forth, and then one guy can get the finish, and then yes, his jiu-jitsu would be superior. But we didn't see it get to that. So. How does Masvidal match with McGregor? That's from Philip Brown. I think he beats McGregor. Now I know people, I think McGregor's a great fighter. I just think Masvidal's too big. He's a great puncher. He's got a great chin, and if he takes McGregor past the 2 rounds, it's gonna be the Masvidal show. And I think he's very smart. He's gonna do it. He'd take it to the later rounds, and then, again, it would be the Masvidal show. Now, I'm not saying McGregor has no chance of winning, but he'd have to win early and he'd have to connect him with the left. And everybody kind of knows that. Everybody knows now what McGregor does. And I think Masvidal is going to have a really good game plan. He's going to be really prepared. And he's a lot bigger. He is a lot bigger than McGregor. So if McGregor had a hard time with Nate, he's going to have a tremendously difficult time with Masvidal. This one is a super chat. Did Jorge Masvidal slow down in round 3 to be ready for Nate's round 4? That's from Reguleo. Reguleo, I do agree. I think he coasted in round 3. I think he's in great shape. I think he could fight hard for 5 rounds, but why? Why bring yourself in such a dangerous position? You coast. He won round 3. I think he was going to try to finish hard and go for the kill around 4 and 5. But to do that, you kind of got to ease back a bit and go back in the game real aggressive. I do think both fighters were looking to finish the fight in round 4 and 5. Especially if it came down to round 5, they were both going to go for the kill. That's just the attitude they have. That's the BMF title. I think that's what it was all about. And I think Jorge was, I do agree with you, Regu, he was setting himself up to finish really strong. Coach, what do you think of the whole BMF thing? Was that belt necessary? That's from Darwish. Darwish, I really appreciate the caps, by the way. Thank you. It makes it so much easier to read. I think the BMF title was a brilliant idea. It was a brilliant idea. Listen, they did really good numbers. The the Madison Square Garden. It looked sold out to me. When I got in there, it looked sold out. And I think the fans were excited for the BMF title. You know, I was there at the press conference, the weigh-ins. I mean, I think everybody was supremely pumped up. And I think, I wasn't there for the press conference during the week. I was there for the kind of like semi-press conference they had at the weigh-in. I think the place seemed really energized. And I don't think the BMF title is going away. I think that they're going to find a home for it in UFC. It's going to be one of those fights where, sometimes guys win the title and they're like, hey, I want to renegotiate. But it's like, no, you're already under contract. No, I'm not fighting until I get my title money that I want. I think those kind of fighters that are holding up the division, that don't want to fight, and they do exist. I'm not naming any names. And I understand why when you're champion, you want to make more money. I totally get that. I see both sides of the argument. I'm not trying to say which side is right or wrong. I think the UFC can be like, hey, you don't want to fight for the title? We don't care. We got the BMF champ. And the BMF champ can't pull one of those. He's the BMF guy. He's got to have that attitude to him that he's ready to fight anytime, anywhere, any place. And he's going to honor his contract. And I think that's where it was born from. I think that there was some kind of gridlock, when it came down to titles and dates and who wants to fight who and who will accept what. And of course, these fighters are under contract, but you can't physically grab them and put them in the cage and force them to fight. Okay, so when they have the leverage, like everybody in business, they try to squeeze out. I think that the BMF title could be at any weight, anytime, anywhere. They don't have to go through the government. They don't have to go through the commission. They could make it a 165-pound catchweight BMF title fight. They could do anything they want with that belt. It's not an official belt. From what I understand, it's not an official belt. I think it's a really smart thing because they're only going to give it to the guys who are game to fight right now. It's kind of like, hey, are you game? Are you fed up with the politics and just going to get in there and fight? You're going to make these fans happy? Is that the kind of fighter you are? And they're trying to breed that class of fighter. So one day there's going to be a guy who's going to hold the BMF title, the UFC title, and who knows, maybe a second title in another weight class, and he'll be the most famous fighter ever. The BMF title, however, is only going to be for a certain type of fighter. Those kind of fighters like Nate Diaz, Masvidal, they don't go in there and try to hold you down and play the points. It's not that kind of fighter. And I have nothing against that, by the way. If wrestlers win that way, they win that way. I'm just saying it's not going to be that type of fighter that's going to get the belt. And I don't think the fans will care. I think the fans will be very interested in the BMF title. Now, UFC said it was going to be a one-time and done deal. I don't think so. I think it's because it was so successful. And every time Masvidal fights until he loses, he's always going to be that guy. He's always going to be the BMF guy. So I think it's brilliant in its ability to create new title fights. Because look, like it or not, whenever there's a title fight on the line, the pay-per-view numbers go up, the ratings go up, I should say. Okay. People are interested when there's a title on the line. It adds more drama to the show. So I think the BMF title fills that need. Okay, guys, we are half an hour in. Do you guys have any other comments or questions on this fight? Or did we do it thoroughly? Could a BMF title be something George St. Pierre would come back for? I don't think he's a BMF type of guy. I don't think that's the kind of title that people want to see him fight for. He's more of a traditional champion. I think BMF is more for the Diaz brothers, the Masvidal. It's a legitimate title in my eyes. In my eyes, it's a legitimate title. But it's more about the guys who are going to go and trade. And they're going to try to really throw caution to the wind, okay? They're going to be less calculated. Let's call it that. Has Diaz progressed since the Mcgregor fight? Oops, that's a good question. Sorry, it skipped. Lots of people writing in questions. Sorry, I didn't get your name. Oh, no. Okay, I got your question, but I'm sorry it skipped. People were typing in and it just kind of did Nate Diaz improve since he's fought McGregor? I would say yes. He fights the same way, but more improved. We saw that in the Pettis fight. He did a good job against Pettis, and that was impressive. An impressive win. Masvidal is another animal. I think we saw a lot of what his limits are. but he did definitely improve. All right, where else are we at here? Hey, coach, thoughts on your BMF contenders? That's from Isaac Abreu. Isaac, my guy, the guys that I train, I have a kind of an unspoken word code of contact. Everybody's so nice. Everybody's really polite. It's not that kind of place. We're not breeding BMFs at Tristar. There might be one or two, but they keep it in check. I think they know the vibe of the gym and they try to keep it in check. All right, guys, what else we got here? Hey, coach, does Masvidal have underrated grappling? That's from the Almighty Fist. I do agree he's got underrated grappling. Absolutely. Saint Kulev, right back at you, my friend. Thank you. Hey, coach. Hey, Faraz, do you think Nate should deal with his eyebrow and surgically fix it? That's from Golden Eye Forever Calm. No, I don't think you fix that with the surgery. There's nothing. I think stitches, from what I understand, stitches is the best way to go. So unless somebody knows otherwise, I don't know how he would go through surgery to fix that. Maybe, and I've heard that they can shave your orbital bone kind of down a little bit. But I've heard of that. But I'm not sure how effective that is. I love you, Faraz. You're the best. I want to meet you. That's what I'm saying. Cool. Super chat. Right back at you, my man. Faraz, quick thoughts on Masvidal versus Mcgregor matchup. Scott Lawler. Scott, I already answered that. I think we would favor Masvidal. What do you think about Nate versus Leon Edwards? That's from Matt P. Honestly, I don't like that fight. I think it's a bad matchup for Nate. I don't think it makes sense for him. I think he should fight Masvidal again or turn it back with McGregor. I think that's what makes the most sense. Emilio X, I'm taking only questions right now on McGregor. Excuse me, not McGregor in the last question, so McGregor. On Masvidal versus Nate or anything related to those two. Coach, what do you think about Ferguson versus Masvidal, BMF? That's from Wake Up. You see, Wake Up, that's a brilliant BMF matchup. Imagine it's possible that Ferguson beats Khabib. And then he goes up to fight Masvidal. But he says, look, Masvidal, meet me at 165. We can do it. That's such a brilliant suggestion, my friend. That's a really wake up. That's a brilliant suggestion. Why? Because Masvidal will be like, look, I'm a bit bigger than the guy. Okay, let me cut to 165. Make it a little more fair for him. We'll fight for the BMF title. It will be a sold out arena, wherever they do it. And now, let's say Ferguson wins. I'm not saying he would win. I'm just trying to give you a scenario how somebody can hold two belts now. You'd have the lightweight champion be the BMF champ. Now, the BMF champ doesn't really have a weight class to it. From what I understand, it's not controlled by the state. I don't think the state is giving us a BMF title, right? So it's not really attached to any weight class. So now you'd have Ferguson be the BMF guy. And then maybe he's fighting at 155, and then all of a sudden at 145, or maybe Max Holloway says, hey, let's meet at 150, BMF title. And it can kind of float around and give us those extra weight classes we want but don't have. Like, I wish there was a super welterweight title, a junior welterweight title, a welterweight title, and so on for every weight class. There should be a junior featherweight title, the featherweight title, junior featherweight, super featherweight, and just a few pounds away. It would make more champions, more matchups, more interesting crossovers. The BMF title kind of fits that gap. Connor Bench says, "Hey coach, how do you think a Wonder Boy versus Masvidal rematch would go? Love from New Brunswick. Congratulations on Kevin's win. Well, thank you very much, Connor. Listen, I don't think now that Masvidal is the BMF champ, I don't think he can fight Wonderboy for it. And I'll tell you why. I was joking around with Wonderboy about this at the fights. We're in New York together. He was training. I was training. And we're in the workout room together. And I was like, listen, when Nate was about to pull out, when Nate pulled out, I told him I was thinking about nominating you for BMF, but I was like, you're the nicest guy in the game. You can't be a BMF champion. That would kill the whole vibe of BMF. If there was a nicest guy in title, I'd nominate Wonderboy. But we were laughing about it. I was like, dude, I wish, you'd have to change your whole persona and like before the fight, which would be, a hard thing to do. He's just too sweet of a guy. He can't fight for such a title. So why would Masvidal fight Wonderboy? Masvidal's the BMF champ. He's supposed to reign over the BMFs in the division. In the UFC. So I don't think it's a smart matchup per se for the marketing aspect, from the marketing aspect of it. I think Wonderboy is trying to make one last run at the title. I don't think he has time for fighting. I don't think he wants to fight a guy he's already beat. There's no reason for that. He needs to fight the next guy in line that's going to move him up. Imagine he were to beat Masvidal. It doesn't really get him closer to the title. He'd just be risking a chance to lose to a guy he already beat. Because if he loses to Masvidal, he'll drop. Why? Because now that win he had once upon a time from Masvidal is taken off his record. So it's a big risk. He already passed the Masvidal hurdle. I'm not saying he beat him again. I'm just trying to say, even if you beat him or he didn't, why take that matchup? Go to the next one. The guy's he's getting older. He's got to make his last run count. He's got to take the shortest path to the title. Fight the hardest guy who'll get you the furthest forward. Who's the biggest name in the division that will allow, if he really believes he's the best, which I do believe he does believe. I do believe that Wonderboy thinks he can win the title. Well, if that's true, you got to fight the best guy in line to hurdle you towards that title. Okay, so that's the number one fight he should take. Whoever's the highest ranked, whoever's name he can get that's the highest ranked. Que va-t-il arriver s'il y a un rematch entre Diaz et Masvidal? That's from Miguel. Miguel is asking, what would happen if there was a rematch between Diaz and Masvidal? In my opinion, Diaz is going to win. Scratch that. In my opinion, we're going to see Masvidal win. He'll win at least 3 out of the 5 rounds. In my opinion, he could also win all 5 rounds. That's what I think would happen, especially after having seen them fight. I think it's the Masvidal show if they fight again. I'm an Indian training MMA. Oh, it skipped. My apologies. Yeah, I gotta put my hand on the keyboard every time that happens. Do you think Masvidal was gassed? No, that's from F Game 2-star. No, I don't think he was gassed. Super chat, coach. Okay, I'm on it. Hold on, what did I miss here? Hey, coach, I sent GSPN art to the gym. You get it? That's from OZ. I got a lot of stuff, man. I'm sorry. I do get a lot of stuff in the mail, especially for George. So I haven't seen any artwork recently. I'm sorry. Okay, guys, we seem to be winding down. I'll open the forum now for anything. For us, thoughts on Israel-Palestine conflict. Truth talk. Whoa, what a question. That's a right term. Well, let's keep it MMA related, training related. Okay, we'll get to the unsolvable political nightmares of the Middle East in a few. Give me a few questions. Okay, let's hit that one maybe a little bit later. Okay, what do we got here? Could USADA be part of the reason why for Masvidal's rise? Golden Eye forever come. Well, are you trying to say that everybody else was on steroids? They got off steroids, so it leveled the playing field. Now Masvidal's shining. Could be a major factor. Classic Lawler versus Masvidal. That's from IOX. You mean prime Lawler, like Lawler in his prime? That's a tough one, man. I'd have to think about it. I don't know. Very tough question. Can you speak to Kevin Lee's maturation and growth you have witnessed in the time you have been with him. Thanks. That's from MJ. Okay, guys, real quick. I know Kevin Lee had a major win. I would congratulate him. Superb performance. However, as usual, I don't talk about the fighters I train in this channel because I don't want to make this a gateway to what I do in the gym and the things we prepare and how we're prepared and what we did. He did a phenomenal job. He has a phenomenal team. I'm very happy to be part of that team. Okay, I'm talking about his former team or his present team as well. We just kind of joined forces. I did get a chance to work with Dewey Cooper, his striking coach. Dewey Cooper is a phenomenal coach. I learned a lot from him in my time working with him. I think me and him get along extremely well. I think we complement each other's strengths and weaknesses. And of course, Kevin Lee had his trainer Robert Follis, who I knew very well. I didn't know him personally, but I've seen him many times at UFC events. We've hung out many times cutting weight. Our fighters are cutting weight, and we're there as trainers, hanging out at the same hotel for the same event with different fighters, of course. So I've talked to him many times. I followed his career. Obviously every time his fighters are competing, I'm there. I'm often there at the same events, or I'm watching it on TV. I'm very familiar with the body of work of Robert Follis and what kind of person he was. He was a supremely very intelligent guy. He was an amazing coach. Very cerebral, intelligent, well-rounded coach. Incredible guy. And for those of you who don't know, he took his life. And Kevin Lee is now without a head trainer. He asked me to fill those shoes. I did. So we did work a few times together, and then a 6-week training camp. That was our first 6-week training camp together. It went very well. There was a lot of obstacles, of course. He fought a very tough opponent. He was an underdog. Everybody picked his opponent, Gregor Gillespie, to win. His back was kind of against the wall. He had 2 losses in a row. But he put in the work. He's a very game fighter, in my opinion. He's a phenomenal talent. And with this team working together, I think we can get him to a world title. But it's going to be a team effort. And I really thank Dewey Cooper and Kevin Lee for including me into the team. And Keith Lee, his training partner, his brother, working with him as well. They're a great group of guys, and I think we gel very well together. So that's what I have to say about that. Congratulations to Kevin Lee. He did a phenomenal performance. He executed beautifully. He fought very intelligently. He fought very focused. He used his talents to win, and put on a phenomenal performance. A KO that's, I think, never going to be forgotten. And most of all, he beat an incredibly dangerous opponent. Somebody who's on the list of who's who. The guy, people were saying this guy's the next Khabib. This guy could possibly even challenge Khabib. This guy's the next Khabib. And look, Kevin was the underdog. Kevin was every expert out there, every journalist, I should say, they all picked Gregor Gillespie, all of them. And I'm not saying that they had no reason to. The guy's a great competitor, but so is Kevin Lee. And sometimes, it's hard to imagine in our minds how a fight is going to play out because we haven't seen those two fight before. Sometimes when you see a rematch, you kind of have a great idea of how things are going to play out. Like, for instance, if you told me Masvidal and Jorge and Diaz are fighting again, I really think I know how the fight's going to go. I'm not sure, but I'm very confident. However, a specialist like Gregor Gillespie, you never know how a fighter is going to react to that style because he has a very unique style. He's a supreme wrestler, incredible conditioning, and when he gets on top, he's just a buzzsaw. So how do people deal with that particular type of style? It's not a well-rounded MMA style. It's not the kind of guy who's going to kick and punch and try subs. And he's not a well-rounded guy. He's a specialist. I would say he's a specialist. He's a puncher and a wrestler. And he's got a top game. I'm assuming, we've never seen him on his back. I'm assuming that on his back he's not as seasoned. His kicking, elbowing, kneeing ability is not as seasoned. But he's really specialized. So how is your fighter, or how is any fighter going to react to that particular style? That's a major question mark. But listen, that's why I was so. That's why I think this is such a big win, because he really defeated a major prospect. Okay, guys, so that's what I have to say about Kevin Lee's fight and performance. I cannot talk more in detail about that. So let's focus on any other questions you guys had. Salam coach, opinions on using knee pads and elbow pads in MMA training. That's from Blue Rings. I think it makes sense, but don't go too rough. If you're kneeing and elbowing, don't be too rough, because if you do that for a prolonged period of time, I guarantee you there's going to be injuries. So I would only use it with like more experienced guys who I trust have a good temperament. They're not going to injure anybody, and they're going to be more calculated with their strikes. They're not going to just try and violently hurt their partners. A woman judoka supposedly sealed off her opponent's carotid in sparring. She held his lapel, blocking his pulse with her thumb. Could this work for BJJ? I think what you're trying to say, she kind of used her thumb here as she was pulling on the lapel. I've never seen that. I've never seen that maneuver. I'd have to feel it. I'm not sure it would work. I have a funny feeling that it would be tough to pull out. Again, I'd have to see it. I've never seen it, but how would that go? I've done my fair share of lapel chokes. I could see my thumb getting caught there maybe as I'm pulling on the lapel, but I don't think that's really choking the guy. I think it's more the lapel that's creating the pressure. You need those two lapels going in opposite directions. So I think that's what's going to make the pressure. I don't know if your thumb is enough, personally. All right, what else we got here? For us, would you offer someone a membership at Tristar in exchange of cleaning the gym? Thanks. That's from How to Get Good. How to Get Good. If you got a website about how to get good and you're asking me to barter for cleaning, your site's not going so well. Now listen, I've done that in the past. I've had people who clean the gym in exchange for a membership. I don't do that very often now. Why? Because I have a cleaning crew. I have staff. I just don't like it. Why? Because then the guy's maybe not going to clean so good. I got to police him. Where, I guess I could kick him out of the gym and all that. I just don't. I have a funny feeling about that. I want to pay you for your labor. I want you to be paid a fair price. And I think that if you had a job cleaning, you could afford a membership at TriStar Gym. I don't make the membership so expensive. I really keep the membership at a very, very reasonable price. Why? Because I like to have the gym full of young kids, and young kids don't have money. Okay, so I don't want the gym just to be corporate guys with suits, doctors, lawyers who can afford a $2,000, $3,000 membership, because they make you buy all the gi and the equipment, and you basically got to pay $3,000 up front. I don't like to do that. That's how you attract businessmen, and all that. That's not the kind. I do have that in the gym, but my gym is mostly young kids who really want to train hard. And we have we have the basics class, but there's that energy in the gym, and I like to keep that energy. Is Johnny Walker going to come back, and should he take some time off? That's from Killer Burrito 17. Well, you know what? I like to work with Johnny Walker. Somebody did reach out to me telling me that it would be a great idea. I think it is a great idea. I think I can really help that young man make a run to the title. I think he's a very, very good talent, but I do think he needs more direction. I would see Johnny Walker, if he got with a good trainer who puts time and energy into him, he can make it very far. Does he need to take time off? Yes, I would take some time off. It wasn't a very bad stoppage for him. He was still on his feet. He had some cobwebs, but it wasn't a horrible stoppage. I mean, it wasn't a bad beating. He did lose. He was on his way to lose if the referee didn't step in. I mean, the fight was almost over, but I think the referee protected him from any serious damage, and therefore I think he should take a few weeks off and then get back in the gym, and no impact, no sparring early, but start working on what went wrong. What else we got here? Do you answer super chats? Yes, I do. What's the toughest weight class? I would say 155, 170. It's hard to say, but right now I would say 155, 170. Coach, how do you feel, how do fighters heal so well from cuts? They almost never scar. What's their secret? That's from Wake Up. Well, the UFC has a really good stitch man in the back room. Like right when you get out of the octagon, you go see the doctor. If you need stitches, they take you in the medical room and they stitch you up. And the guy's done so many stitches. He's always stitching fighters. He's brought it. He's got a lot of practice, and he does it. He's a true professional in stitching, and they're gonna do it neatly. I've seen it done many times. The way they do it, depending on the cut, sometimes they stitch it on the inside, then they stitch it on the outside. They're trying to connect that tissue as much as possible together. The tighter the more like, the more they can bring that those two separated tissues together, I'm assuming, is what makes the difference. I do imagine that there are levels of stitches. They're different. You can get a guy who could do it good, and you can get a guy who does it amazingly. And I think the UFC doctors, because they do it so often, and obviously the UFC is probably hiring the best guy, they do such a great job. Now, I'm not familiar with what's the difference between an elite stitch guy and a regular stitch guy, but I do agree with you that the stitch guys at the UFC always seem to do an amazing job. The stitch always almost comes out like, even after it's stitched, it looks really, really thin, and really, really like the knots are so small. Where I've been stitched by a regular Joe, and the stitches are thick, bulky. You could see it from a mile away, my stitches. Where the UFC doctors know those stitches are really neat and tight, and really, really keeping like a nice finish. It doesn't seem like there's a major scar afterwards. The cage saved him from getting dropped. Was a good stoppage. That's from Harry. Are you talking about excuse me, the Corey's Johnny Walker Corey fight? I would agree. Look, the cage helped him stay up, but you can also get hit and run into the cage and go limp, and there's nothing gonna hold you up, no matter how limp, no matter how many cages are, like, you're going down. So he was still, his mind was still there. He was not unconscious, right? Coach, as a boxer going into MMA, how do you limit injuries in training? I appreciate the Q&A. Emilio, train sensibly, man, and train with sensible people. That's the best way to limit injuries. Another super chat. Why is Rickson Gracie so great and unstoppable? Can you solve the myth? Prime Rickson or Garcia? That's from Varun. Oh, that's a tough question now. You're going to put me in a political nightmare. Listen. In the time of Rickson, the techniques were at a certain level. By the time we got to Marcelo Garcia, we've made so many discoveries in Jiu-Jitsu, and we're going to continue making discoveries. So if you time traveled Rickson to Marcelo's time, Marcelo has seen so many other passes, so many other finishes that Rickson hasn't had. Now, if you travel Marcelo back into Rickson's time and the Jiu-Jitsu at Rickson's time, and you strip away all of Marcelo Garcia's innovations that he had the privilege of having for being in a later era, if they both had the same like trainers, let's say, I would pick Rickson. I just think there was something special about him. Okay, I know I have no reason to say that, but I do think Rickson would be, I'll tell you why. Every black belt that ever trained with him, the who's who of black belts, they always say they got killed. Now, I didn't see it with my own eyes. I didn't see it. I'll give you, for instance, Fabio Gurgel, Marcelo Garcia's trainer, once upon a time gave an interview, said, look, I rolled with Rickson Gracie, and I got absolutely killed. He kept saying, look, and Fabio Gurgel is a world champion. And we're like, really? Like, it wasn't competitive at all. He's just telling you how he got killed. And, every black belt that ever rolled with him, they always tell us he was light years ahead. Now, there was a Gracie tradition once upon a time where all the Gracies would get together every year, every second year. The who's who of the Gracies, they would get together and train, kind of update techniques. And I can't remember who it was. It was, I'm forgetting, Eric Paulson. Eric Paulson was allowed to come and train at this training session. Now, remember, I'm a kid now. I didn't do jiu-jitsu yet. I'm just reading these magazine articles, dreaming about the day I'm going to get to do jiu-jitsu. And this is a true story. I was buying every black belt magazine. There was no jiu-jitsu instructor in my city. I was just like foaming at the mouth. When am I going to get to learn Brazilian jiu-jitsu? I was like 19 years old and really like into UFC. I was watching the early UFCs and I was like, wow, this is incredible. So I was reading this article and Eric Paulson was saying, look, I can't tell you what happened on the mats because, they tell you, supposedly, according to Eric Paulson, when you train there, they tell you, look, what happens on the mats stays on the mats. And that's a rule in not only jiu-jitsu, but in boxing and wrestling, kickboxing gyms. Like if you go to a gym and you spar and then you go tell the world what you did, it's frowned upon. Nobody wants to train with you no more. So anyways, Eric Paulson saying, look, I can't tell you what happened on the mats, but I can tell you one thing. Nobody got anywhere near close to a good position on Rickson. Nobody got anywhere near tangling it up with Rickson. Excuse me. Rickson crushed everybody. Now, the only reason he would say something like that is because that's the general vibe. Everybody got their ass kicked from Rickson. Everybody was unanimously agreed upon. Look, there's no secret here. He's way better than us. So that's why I would say probably Rickson. Because look, it could be a dojo myth and all that. But listen, if these elite black belts are saying it, and these guys are world champions, for me, I believe it. For me, it's enough. Like these guys, I know these guys. I've met them personally. They're not liars, you know. Gordon Ryan versus Roger Gracie. Nogi, who wins? Oh boy, you're really putting me in a political nightmare here. Listen, those are two guys I've trained with, and I know them well. I respect them well. Let's say it's a draw. Okay, I'm calling it a draw. Okay, what else we got here? No more fantasy matchups with guys I know. For us, what's your favorite fight for UFC 244? That's from Mo. Well, of course, it's going to be the Kevin Lee fight. You know, that was the fight I helped train in. You know, so I ran the camp, so I'm really happy with that result. Richard Harrow. Roger Gracie wins. You know what? I think it's a strong possibility. Okay, guys, what else we got here? Do you listen to music? That's from Am Wolof. Yes, I do listen to music sometimes. I don't listen to music a lot. Like, I know some people... I imagine most people listen to music like almost every day. I'm not one of those people. I'll listen to music rarely. Now, when I was growing up, I listened to a lot of music, but now I'm more, my mind is more thirsty for, watching a documentary, listening to an audiobook. Don't ask me why. That's just what I enjoy nowadays more. I don't even like watching movies anymore. You know, my wife yesterday, she was asking me, did you watch The Gotham on Netflix? I'm like, I don't know. I used to love those kind of things like Superman, Spider-Man, like X-Men. But we're talking about it yesterday. I was talking about it yesterday with my wife, and I was like, you know what? I haven't really watched those things in years. And the times that I have is because my kids wanted to watch it and I wanted to hang out with them. But I might find myself bored now. I used to really enjoy those kind of movies. The movies I still enjoy is like the zombie movies. I still enjoy zombie movies. I'm not sure why, but I do like those kind of things. I like, don't get me wrong. Like, if there was a really good one out there, I'll go watch it. But it's just, I feel like I've seen them all. And I just don't enjoy them as much anymore. I know it's weird. I kind of feel the same way about music. Music is not just... It's not as exciting as it used to be. Dean Black. Assalamu alaikum, coach. My son wants to roll every day, but he's only 10. How can I help him train at home by myself? Dean Black, I suggest, take my words here very seriously, you roll with him and learn a little bit of Jiu-Jitsu with him. Okay, get a good Jiu-Jitsu instructional, a basics video. He's 10 years old. And learn one move every day. Do something to help your son in his newfound love for jiu-jitsu. If he wants to roll every day, cultivate that. Absolutely. Train with your son every day. Go buy mats. Go buy a 5x10 mat. It's foldable. It's about $180. Buy it. Put it on your living room. Surprise him. Challenge him to a grappling match. Roll with him. Spend time with him, study a move, one a day with him, one a day. And at the end of the year, that'll be 365 moves. That'll be plenty of moves. More than he needs to have learned in that year. He's 10 years old, don't forget. Okay? Take it one step at a time. And I guarantee you, when he's older, he'll remember it. And I guarantee you, when he's older, you're going to be happy you've done it. Okay? Don't wait for him to reach his teen years and you never did anything good for him. Okay, so I do it with my kids, by the way, and let's build an incredible bond. Okay, we're really close, so that's very important in my opinion. Share his common interest, and if you can't take him to the gym every day, train him at home. Okay, what else we got here? Did you ever wish to be a UFC fighter? That's from Mo. Well, you know what? I was there when George had his first UFC fight. I listen, when I was in my amateur career, the biggest event in Canada was TKO. I believe it was called TKO still back then. Or was it, I can't remember what it's called. And they were writing me up as the greatest prospect in Canada. Greatest prospect in Canada. Like, is he going to turn pro? Is he going to turn pro? And George was pro. He had his first fight in UFC at that time, and he made 3+3. And he spent a fortune bringing us there, feeding us, and like, you know, four or five guys. And at the end of the day, what was the profit? It was like, it wasn't pretty. And thank God we had a coach with us that had money, you know, and he kind of helped George, you know, get all every, because, you know, training camps cost money. They cost more than 3+3. And I saw the stress George was on. I saw how difficult it was, and I'm telling you, we didn't know at that time. You have to be fair now, okay? At that time, with the information we had then, it wasn't a good choice. It wasn't a good career choice. One, it was super dangerous, and two, there was no money in it. Like, if you're a professional fighter and you're fighting 3 times a year, at that time, it would take you a long time to make money, and you have to beat all these killers. Like, it was just not a feasible. It didn't make any sense. So when I competed as an amateur, I did it because I wanted to understand what fighting is. I wanted the adventure of it. Okay, I did want to try it. However, I never thought of it as a career that would put food on the table, pay my bills. Okay, eventually I wanted to become, believe it or not, I wanted to become a lawyer. And that was the career path I thought of. I'm gonna end up being a lawyer. Of course, I fell heavily into training. That the market exploded. Now we can actually live off this hobby we love. I did it because I loved it, and George too was doing it because he loves it. He wasn't living off it. Okay, he was also working many part-time jobs. He's not a career guy. You know, he was working odd jobs. And we just loved it because martial arts was cool. That's it. You know, that's the truth. We were not doing it for the 3+3. Nobody was expecting to make money. And all of a sudden, quickly, it was like a night and day, the market exploded. You know, after a few wins, new contracts, and it boomed. It was incredible. You know, the Tito Ortiz days. Tito Ortiz really helped the business side of it. He was so famous at one point, you couldn't even buy that beanie of his. You know, the beanie with the flames? You couldn't even get one. I'm telling you. I know why, because my friends would tell me, hey, can you get me one? I'm like, I don't even, like, online they're sold out. He's like, yeah, sold out. Like, can you get one from the UFC? Like, when you go there, can you buy one from this? I'm like, I don't even know how, like, you can't even get your hands on one of them. That's how well he was doing. It was Punishment Clothing. I don't know if Punishment Clothing still exists. Actually, I have no idea. But just to tell you, Tito Ortiz was so famous that everybody got a pay raise. Okay, everybody got a pay raise. And it's kind of like with Mcgregor. You know, he's so famous, everybody's getting a pay raise. George St. Pierre was so famous, everybody got a pay raise. And that's the nature of the sport. I'm still hoping that, you know, within my career, you're going to have fighters who sign their first fight with UFC is $1 million. I think it's going to happen. It's going to be like boxing. You're going to have this kid who's a killer and amateur. He's a huge prospect. Everybody wants him. He's going to sign with this company, but he's not taking less than $1 million for his first fight. It might be far away still. I understand. However, it's going to happen. It's going to be like boxing. You want to sign this hot prospect, this guy who won Olympic gold, this guy who has like 200 wins, or whatever it may be, whatever the accolades may be. There's going to be a day where we're going to break through that threshold, and fighters are going to be getting paid mad amount of money. It's like in boxing. I think those days can come quicker than expected because I lived it already once. Like, I thought, hey, you know, let's say he's making 3+3 now, and how many years is it going to be before he's making 200 plus 200? Wow, that seems far away. But he made way more than 200 plus 200 in his career. It leaped. I thought it was going to go step by step. It leaped. Why did it leap? That's a question that I have to sit down and think about, but I think it really had to do with the explosion of the market. The market just, at one point, we became the most I should say, it became the hottest sport in the world in over a weekend. I think it was, I'll be honest with you now, I think the fight that triggered a lot of people to watch MMA was, and if you haven't watched this fight, you have to go back and watch this fight. You must. Frank Shamrock versus Tito Ortiz made a lot of noise. It made a lot of noise. I think that was one of the first fights to really go, I don't want to say mainstream. It wasn't mainstream, but to really shake the underground. Because everybody wanted to watch that fight. It was a massive, massive fight. And Tito lost that fight. It was an epic fight. Frank Shamrock retires in the octagon. And then Tito goes on to be a megastar. And he just blows the division out of the water. He does his redemption fights. Like, he just really stunning performances. Stunning. Look, that loss reinvented him. And it was just an incredible story. And I think that was what really made the sport grow overnight. Then you start having these crazy entrances. Tito Ortiz was having pyrotechnics, fireworks everywhere. It was just a great moment. And if you haven't seen these fights and you go back and watch them, you might be like, hey, coach, yeah, it's cool, but it wasn't like over the top. For us at the time, it was incredible. For us at the time, that was incredible. That's what he came in with the flag, the Tito, Tito had his two-sided flag, his Mexican and American flag. He just had an allure and a persona that was just so likable. So the American fans ate it up. It was like very similar to what Ronda Rousey brought to the table. That bad boy, bad girl, toughness. Tito Ortiz, after he'd knock out his opponents, he would do like he's burying them. He would literally dig their graves. He would pretend to be digging their graves. And then pulling their carcass into the grave and kind of like patting it, throwing dirt on them and patting it. And it was very controversial. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people loved it. He had that attitude. Now, personally, it's not my cup of tea. But at the end of the day, did it increase the popularity of the sport? The answer is yes. All right, guys. What is the next question? We got a super chat here from Jeremy Brooks. Jeremy, pro MMA scheduling 6 days a week for skill? ? How many days do you recommend pros do train strength and conditioning off camp and in camp? What are your favorite strength and conditioning routines? Jeremy, I think you snuck in more than one question there. I know you paid $5, but I think you owe me 15. No, I'm just kidding. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna take a sip here and give you a good little answer. Okay. All right, guys. Jeremy, I want you to take a pen and paper. And I want you to write down the 25 most important things you think you need to do for your game. So hold on a second. First thing you're going to do is you're going to self-evaluate. How good are you at grappling, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, conditioning, strength versus endurance? Let's keep it simple. Give yourself a grade on 1 to 10. So let's say you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu and your father was a black belt and you've been doing jiu-jitsu your whole life. And you're a 9.7 in jiu-jitsu on 10. But, you never threw a punch in your life and your boxing is at 0. Let's call it a 2. I want you to give yourself a grade on every skill set you need. Okay, and strength and conditioning, let's divide it between power and endurance. So you have 2 categories for strength and conditioning. One is for endurance and one is for power. Now, there's a lot more to strength and conditioning. I'm giving you things in a nutshell. Then I want you to evaluate yourself. Okay, you're looking at yourself. You're saying, look, I really need a lot of this. Maybe I need a lot of wrestling. Okay. Now, keep that evaluation on the side. Take another piece of paper and write down the 25 most important things you need to do in no particular order. And then after you write down the 25 most important things, let's say I have to spar, let's say I have to do my runs, let's say I have to lift weights, I have to do squats, I need more power. Okay, I got to do this jiu-jitsu class in this place. They have a jiu-jitsu guy. Okay, I got to do my Muay Thai with this guy over here at this gym or whatever. Put it all in the list. Then put that list in order. Number 1 being the most important. Number 2 being the second most important. Number 3 being the third most important. And don't forget, you're doing this in the light when you're organizing your schedule. You're doing it in the light of your evaluation. What's the most important? Not in general for every single human being on earth. No, but for this guy, you, Jeremy Brooks. And then once you have that list in order, only do the top 5. Do number 1 every day until you can't do number 1. So let's say number 1 is sparring because you're a seasoned guy, but you just got to put it together. Okay, you're going to spar, but you can't spar every day. Okay, so you sparred on Monday. Tuesday, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to do number 1. Well, sparring was yesterday. I got to recover. Okay, so what's number 2 on the list? Bag intervals, because I don't throw enough punches when I'm fighting. Okay, bag intervals it is. What's number 3 on the list? Wrestling, because I get killed all the time. I get taken down. Well, let me make sure that I'm wrestling more than I'm doing road work. Why? Because road work was 7. Why is it 7? Because I don't get tired when I spar. I'm in such great shape. I'm in incredible shape. So I don't feel like running is important to me. So we're not going to run. We're going to do very little of running. Maybe strength is your problem. So, okay, strength is number 4. Let's do some weights. When I can't be sparring, when I can't be doing intervals, because intervals, I need to recover from my last interval session. Okay, maybe I'm going to hit some deadlifts. Okay, so I want you to take that approach. Try taking that approach. You'll get very far with this formula. I guarantee you. All right, what else we got here? Coach Zahabi versus John Kavanagh. How to get good. How to get good in the house. Everybody keeps asking me to fight John Kavanagh. I don't know why. I like the guy. He's a really nice guy. Faraz, I missed your super chat. If Faraz missed your super chat, it wouldn't be intentional. He's not that kind of guy. Golden, I appreciate you coming to my rescue. I'm not sure whose super chat I missed. And you're absolutely right. I do my best never to miss a super chat. Hold on. Kit Dale. That's from Dean Black. I don't know what that means. Thoughts on Kit Dale style training coach? I think you mean, you said Kid Dad. I think you mean Kid Dale. I think you mean Kid Dale says no drilling. He just kind of teaches you principles. Is that the guy you're talking about Kid Dale? He's a really good jiu-jitsu practitioner. Very excellent. I don't know how you teach class without drilling. Like, no drilling. I show you a move. I show you how it's done. And we talk about the theory. Now go do it. I don't think that makes any sense, to be honest with you. And I'm not trying to attack Kid Dale. I have the utmost respect for him. I know he's an incredible jiu-jitsu guy. I don't know if he has any great students. I've never heard anybody come from his lineage, per se. Maybe he does. I don't know. However, I've never seen that formula work, and it doesn't make sense to me. Because when you're drilling, you're learning coordination. How could I learn coordination just verbally? From everything I've learned about coordination, and I think coordination is one of the major keys to winning anything. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Now, a seasoned black belt not drilling, that could make sense to me. You can kind of give him a theory. Look, he knows the motor. He has the motor skills already. But anybody who's not a black belt, or I should say even anybody who's not a seasoned black belt, not drilling, look at the Olympians. They drill. Look at the Olympians in every sport, every combat sport. They all drill. If they're wrong, I need somebody to prove it. I need somebody to do his system and go win, and then I'll start to investigate the system. But till then, I won't even bother investigating the system unless somebody can lay it out to me. Because I have worked with somebody who's affiliated with him, and he was kind of telling me that we do it just cerebrally, and I roll with the guy, and he wasn't great. Like, he was good. Don't get me wrong, he was good. And I think he learned jiu-jitsu drilling, and then he came up with this philosophy. But he didn't come up to black belt like that. I doubt it, because I know his trainer, and his trainer doesn't believe in this kind of thing. I know his trainer, exactly who his trainer is. I've trained with his trainer, and that's not the kind of guy he is. The guy in question who was training just mentally kind of thing, I think he was good. I don't think he was great. I think he was very good. I'll even use very, very good. But the guys who drill, they're better. Let's just put it that way. George bought a few kilos with what? Well, I don't know what you mean by that, so I'm just going to drop it. For us, I paid for an answer you never answered. I feel cheated. Oh, boy. That's from Funk Zulu. Funk Zulu. Hold on a second. Let me see. Where's Funk Zulu? Where's my boy Funk Zulu? Funk, you know what? Rewrite your question. I'm going to scan it, okay, as the questions go up. I got one here from Steele. John Steele, Funk Zulu, I'm going to scan. Give me a second. Once I finish this question, I'm going to scroll down on the chat and I'm going to look for Funk Zulu's question. Just retype it because for some reason I'm not finding your super chat. Hey, coach, I have my first fight coming up in 4 months. Any advice or pointers? John Steele. Yes, John. Train really, 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 really hard. Train very, very often without injuring yourself or going to the point of burnout. Okay, so find that middle ground. Find that right amount. And the last 2 weeks of your fight, cut your training in half at minimum, like maybe even 3/4 of your training. You're going to go in the gym. You're going to feel like you want more. That's how you should feel. The last 2 weeks of your training, cut out 50 to 80% of your training. Cut it out. Let your body recover. Visualize your training. Visualize your performance. You know, if the guy punches me, I'm going to do this. If the guy shoots at me, I'm going to do this. Do that. You can't physically train as much in the last 2 weeks because you'll leave your work in the gym. Okay, so you got 4 months. That's a lot of weeks to juggle. Okay, so slowly ramp up. But the last 2 weeks, cut it. I would say at least 50%. So if you were doing 5 rounds of sparring, you're doing 2. Okay, and then 1 round on the bag. Okay, the round on the bag will be counted as half a round of actual sparring. All right, guys. I'm looking for Funk Zulu's. Funk Zulu. My man Funk Zulu had a question. Where is my man Funk Zulu? Funk, I'm stopping the whole show just for you, okay? Because I know you feel cheated here. All right, Funk, this is your big moment here. Pop your question. And it better not be, will you marry me? I'm on, Funk. All sorts of questions coming in. Still no Funk Zulu. Funk, I'm giving you last chance here. All right. Richard Harrow screams out, Funk Zulu. We're all waiting on Funk Zulu. Guys, anybody see Funk Zulu's question? All right. Funk Zulu. I am Funk Zulu. That's from Earhad. No, you're not Funk Zulu. All right, Funk. I'm going to give you a 5-second count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, Funk. You didn't ask the question. I'm even going to give you another more. No Funk Zulu. Okay, guys, we're going to continue. All right, we got loads of questions coming. Funk Zulu, you're famous now. You're famous in the chat room. Funk Zulu feels cheated. Would it be okay for a hobbyist to come to the dorm? That's from Paul. Yes, Paul, of course. We train all levels, all the time. All right. Is sex good before the fight, after, or both? That's from Delton. Listen, Delton. Where do I land on the whole sex before the fight thing? Listen. I would tell you, honestly, I would prefer my fighters don't have sex before the fight. I don't think that if my fighter told me, hey, coach, last night I had sex, I wouldn't be like, oh, my God, we're going to lose the fight. Now it's all over. I'm not one of those coaches because there are coaches who freak out. They freak out if their fighter has any kind of sexual activity before the fight. And some of them even, like my trainer, would want us to stop 2 months before the fight, which obviously was nonsensical. But he was very aggressive. No, you can't fight. You can't do this. You can't do it. I know that your testosterone level will go back to normal within 24 hours. But I feel like, we put our bodies through so much stress. Are you in the mindset of war? Like your mind should be on kill. Your mind, not kill. That's not a good description. Your mind should be on mission accomplished. And before, in the nature, before you can have the right to reproduce, you first have to have a mission accomplished, stamped on you. Okay, you know what I mean? Let's not talk about kill and survival and all that, but let's just say you have to have done what you have to do, right? You have to have fought and won. I feel that there's a psychological element there. I'm not going to the buffet full. I want to win. I have a hunger in me. And this is all psychological. I can't put it to you in a test tube, but I can tell you something. It's very psychological. I'm hungry to win. I have that hunger, that instinct, that killer edge, that razor's edge, I should say. I feel that your mind is sharper. Everything is better, and proof of that, George Costanza. If you guys remember the Seinfeld episode where he abstains from sex and he starts becoming this super genius and starts solving all his life's problems. Now, that might sound weird and crazy, and I know it's not actually true. Obviously, it's a sitcom, but I feel that if you abstain, those reflexes, you start seeing, not literally seeing, but like, I think your mind goes into a different place. And I think it's a natural instinct. It's a natural instinct that you want to go and win. Not a physical one. I know if we test your testosterone, it'll be the same within a certain amount of hours and everything's going to be okay. And physiologically, you're the same. But you're also going to be happier and more content, which I don't want you to be happy and content. I want you to go in there hungry. I want you to go in there with, I'm going to win or I'm going to perish. That mentality, even though it's not the case. But when you have that mentality, you are going to fight better. Okay, you're going to fight better. I hope I made sense there, but it's a tough thing to express. You want to be in sympathetic mode, not parasympathetic mode. Polyvagal theory. Okay, what you're saying is parasympathetic. Not you want to be in sympathetic mode, not parasympathetic. For those of you who don't know, parasympathetic is when you're calm and like you're going to bed now. You're going to fall asleep. You want to be in the sympathetic mode. Sympathetic mode is like your fight or flight. I wouldn't say necessarily you have to be in fight or flight, but there's an element of that. I think we have to have a balanced element of that, because you could also be in a panicky mode, and that would be sympathetic. I wouldn't want you to be in an ultra sympathetic state, if that makes sense. I don't want you to be parasympathetic. You're right. Absolutely not. I want you to have a balance of the two. A balance of the two. Michael Dwyer. Question. Can you list a few of your favorite books in sports psychology and peak performance? Okay, one of my favorite books, I would say, is The Inner Game of Tennis. Brilliant book. That taught me not to overcoach. And I've had lots of success following those principles. It's a great book. Another book I would recommend is Psycho-Cybernetics. It's a good book. I don't think it's the end-all, be-all book, but it's a good book. A third book I would recommend is With Winning in Mind by With Winning in Mind. Excuse me, I'm forgetting the author's name. By Lainey Basham. Lainey Basham. Okay, check out With Winning in Mind by Lainey Basham. Another great book. Okay, guys, we are an hour 23 minutes in. Almost 2,000 people in the chat room. This is incredible. How should I train with stress fractures in my legs? Stress fractures in my legs. Healing time is 8+ weeks because I made them worse by running. That's from John. John, hit the pool, my brother. Hit the pool. Talk to your doctor. Call up the best physio guy in town. Pay him for a phone call or go see him, visit him, pay him for a session, and ask him, does it make sense to go to the pool? Because pool is a great way to stay fit if you have stress fractures, in my opinion. But make sure you talk to your doctor first. Okay? All right, I got to put another little kid in the timeout. I'm going to give him a timeout. Or should I just banish him? I don't know. What do you guys think? You know, I always say I want to rule this chat room like a dictator. I don't know why I'm asking you guys your opinion. All right, one timeout, and then after that, you're banned for life. All right, I'm memorizing your name. That's how a good dictator should do it. I'm a huge Gregor Gillespie fan. You guys did a hell of a job, coach. That's from James. James, I'm also a huge Gregor Gillespie fan. I think he's a phenomenal fighter. I think he'll be back. I think he'll win many fights. I told his coaches after that, I said, look, he's going to win 10 fights in a row. Like, this kid's a killer. You know, he had a setback, but he's a dangerous fighter. We all know it. He could be very much, a Khabib in that division. He's going to bust all through a lot of fighters. So I'm also a very big fan. Hi, coach. I was 250 pounds. Now I'm down to 215. I run 3 to 5 miles every other day, but it hurts my legs. I was just about to tell you shouldn't be running. It hurts my legs. Would fasting be a good way to help me run less? Cooter asks, Cooter, if you're 250 pounds or 215 pounds now, I don't recommend running. You're too big to run. You're too big to run so many miles. Okay, a lot of you maybe some of you can disagree with me, but I don't think somebody who weighs that much should run. You're gonna bang up your knees. You're gonna bang up your hips. You're gonna bang up your Achilles tendons. You're gonna burst your Achilles tendon one day. And some of you are like, oh, no, coach, that's not true. Today I walked in the gym. The manager of my gym popped his Achilles cord, broke his Achilles cord. I'm like, how the hell did you do that? He's like, he was training. He did a cartwheel. I'm like, and he's a former gymnast. And I'm like, a cartwheel? I said, you weren't warmed up. He's like, I was totally warmed up. I was an hour in training. I was like, damn. He popped his Achilles cord. Why did he pop his Achilles cord? All these years of training. And Kelly Starr coined the term. I'm forgetting now. Sorry, guys. He coined the term when your muscles are tight. I'm forgetting the term. Okay, I'm sorry. If you're not aligned and you have any tightness in your body, you're a candidate for injury. Okay, so if you run at the weight you're taxing these joints and you're over tightening your muscles. You don't know. You're too big to slam those knees over and over again. And I have a strong feeling your running technique is very poor. Why? 95% of the people I've seen run have a very poor technique. Even people who run every day have very poor technique. You have to know how to run. You have to be like 165 and under, 170 and under to do the mileage you're talking about every other day, in my opinion. You should use Airdyne. Cooter. Use Airdyne. Use the rowing machine. Use swimming. Use anything but high impact. Use anything but running. Running is high impact on the knees. I highly suggest you use Airdyne. If your goal is to lose weight, use Airdyne. You'll get there faster than by running. And I would use intervals. Don't do long, slow, steady state running. Do intervals every other day. Do 30 seconds hard Airdyne and 30 seconds light. Do that for 10 minutes. Do that every other day. It won't take that long. And you'll get more muscular and you'll get more fit. On the days in between, do some weights. The scale won't show it as much, but your body composition is going to show. You're going to gain muscle. You're going to burn fat. You're going to look good. Maybe you're naturally 225. That's okay. Be what you naturally are. But pack on that muscle and do interval training. Do HIIT training to lose weight. Low impact HIIT training. Okay? I guarantee you'll lose more weight doing the Airdyne the way I'm telling you than running these long miles. It doesn't make sense. Fasting is a good option in terms of diet. It's not a bad idea. I would recommend you eat between 10 to 6 and see where that takes you. 10 a.m. you start eating. 6 p.m. you stop eating. See where that takes you. If you want to get more strict on your dieting, maybe you start eating between 12 and 6 or 10 and 3, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Okay? All right, guys, I got another super chat here. That's from Mario Gomez. Kevin Lee seems like an incredibly explosive athlete. Is efficient of energy use one of the main focuses of his development under your watchful eye? Okay, a little grammar error there, but no problem. Is the use of energy one of your main focuses under your watchful eye? And Mario, absolutely. You know me, maximum efficiency. So absolutely. Yes, you're completely correct on that. All right, what else we got here? I think I missed a super chat. No, I did not. The Mind of Ray Ray, my man. Mind of Ray Ray. What belt are you at now? I can see you're a subscriber. I can't really tell. Hold on. I think Mind of Ray Ray is a black belt now. Okay, I got to take his answer. As always, you are the man. Congratulations on your team's win this weekend. Thank you, the Mind of Ray Ray. Very appreciated. My man, the Mind of Ray Ray. Your thoughts on Cyril Gain? That's from How to Get Good. He actually trains with one of my students in France. He's a great fighter. Future world champion. Mark my words. Cyril will be world champion. Now, there's going to be a few guys I think that are going to be world champion. One of them is Ngannou and one of them is Cyril. And if they cross paths, hopefully it's in a world title fight and not before. This will be these are the two big prospects I think in the heavyweight division. I'm Wolof. And any Islamic philosophy book recommendations? I highly recommend Ghazali's Confessions. JS Hendricks that fought GSP versus Khabib. Hendricks that fought GSP versus Khabib. You're talking about pound for pound? That's a tough call, man. That's a tough call. Hendricks, let's say before USADA. Before USADA. That's a tough call, man. He's got that punching power. That's too tough to call. You guys give me really tough calls to make. Very tough. What else we got here, gentlemen? Another. Got a herniated disc. Another. This is from Yosef Ragab. Got a herniated disc in my neck from BJJ. Any tips on overcoming training modifications to be able to get back to the mats? Listen, you got to read Supple Leopard. I'm not going to talk about it because I talked about it so many times. Listen, this is a great exercise. Watch. I'm going to demonstrate how to help your herniated disc. Okay, so watch. I'm going to move the mic here a bit. You might not be able to hear me as well, but bear with me here. Okay. All right, watch this. Okay. You put your two fingers. By the way, guys, I've had neck problems for years. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can move it like this. I've had neck problems for years, like early in jiu-jitsu training. I searched the world for the best neck advice. I'll tell you, there's a lot of good neck advice, but this is one of the better ones. Okay, so watch what I'm doing here. Watch it. You're going to take your 4 fingers here, 2 fingers on each hand, put them here, and now watch. You're pushing your chin in like if there was a rope, like if you're being pulled by the top of your head here like this. Okay, so now when you do this, your neck is being all your vertebrae are being pulled up. When your vertebrae are being pulled up, it pulls back all that jelly inside the vertebrae. That's what they say. Okay, I read this from a doctor. He wrote a book specializing on the neck, and I'm forgetting the doctor's name now, but he's a specialist on necks, and he was giving us this exercise to do. So this is what we do. Watch, you do it for reps. Watch. 1, 2, 3, and you hold it for a few seconds. Okay, so I'll do it kind of sideways a bit. And then maybe you do 20 reps. And he would recommend doing it under the shower. So if you turn on the shower in the morning and then you let the hot water go on your muscles to relax your muscles, you create blood flow, and then you start doing these exercises. And then he would do like this. He would go to the side. So watch. I know I look like a total, I know. But I'm trying to help this brother out here. Okay, so you push your neck in, and then you turn to the side gently, really gently. And then you push your neck in, so you do 30 of those on each side. Then you push your neck in, and he would do it to the side. But the one to the side I found was kind of pinching my neck, so I didn't do it often. But watch. Less is more. Don't tilt too far. Just a little nudge, okay? I would do that every day until my neck pain goes away. And then I would do it maybe every other day. Okay. Now that's one very important key to getting your neck nice and healthy and on the fast track to feeling good again. Okay. I also recommend you read Kelly Starrett's book. It's a picture book and he gives a lot of great other exercises. But I've used this one with many people and their necks have gotten a lot better. I have a lot more exercises I could show you, but start with this one. Okay. All right. What else we got here? All right, guys, we are an hour and a half in. I'm going to do a few more, and then we're going to call it a wrap. We're going to call it a night. Okay, guys, I'm looking here for a reasonable question. We got a lot of crazies in the chat room tonight. What would your reaction be if Connor showed up at TriStar for a membership? How to get good? How to get good? Getting on the board a lot tonight. Listen, I would allow him to train. If he had a good attitude, I would allow him to train. We train together. You know, bygones be bygones. I wouldn't have a problem with him. However, if he had that, attitude doesn't gel with the team, I would kindly ask him to leave. And of course, when high caliber pros come in, we don't charge them. We just let them come and train. And but the fee is a good attitude. That's what I always say. And I'm sure he would be, I'm sure when he's in front of the camera, he's putting on the persona. I'm sure every day. I've met the guy before years ago. I met him. He was really nice. He was very friendly, polite. He wasn't brash at all. He was super, super friendly. So I think in practice room, he's just a regular Joe. He's probably really nice. All right, guys. What else we got here? All right, what else we got here? What else? This is a reasonable question, dude. I got an injury. Will human growth hormones fix it? That's from Abdurrahman Shah. Well, listen, depends on your injury. I would ask, did you shatter a bone? I don't know. I'd ask a doctor. Listen, personally, I wouldn't take hormones because I feel like maybe it can harm you in other ways. I would talk to a doctor. The doctor's going to have to weigh the benefits or the pros and cons. I would only do it if it was something a doctor recommended to me. I wouldn't injure myself and be like, hey, let me get some hormones and administer it to myself. I would never do that. If I injured myself and saw a doctor and the doctor says, look, your injury is really bad. You need this kind of hormone therapy. It's going to be, for a certain period of time and it'll help you heal this injury and you'll be healthy again. Then I would do it. Okay. But I'm not going to self-medicate myself with steroids or HGH. I wouldn't do that. Now, if you're a professional fighter, you probably can't even go that route, even if it's recommended by a doctor. Okay, you'd have to do it on the up and up, but I never do anything like that without a doctor's advice. And even if a doctor gave me that advice, I'll probably ask for a second opinion. Assalamu alaikum, coach. Is cow's milk healthy or not? That's from Abdul Hakim. Listen, I don't drink it. Now, I know today's milk we have in our markets is probably not the best because they say, it's got all this and that in it. I personally don't drink it. I don't think milk is great for you. But again, most nutritionists I've read up on, they don't recommend milk for many reasons. But they say it's good for kids. And then after that, you got to quit it. Coach, outside ashi, good or bad? That's from Marco. Marco, it depends if you know what you're doing. If you know what you're doing with outside ashi, then it makes sense. But I see a lot of guys do outside ashi and it backfires. How could I strengthen the bones in my hand when punching? Big fan, bro. Heart. Rusty drug. Well, thank you. Appreciate that heart you sent me. How can you strengthen the bones in your hands? Well, I'll tell you something. I like to hit the bag with no gloves. I hit the bag with no gloves. I punch. Oftentimes people walk in the gym to see me hitting the bag with no gloves. They're like, coach, I got to buy you a pair of gloves. I'm like, no, I don't need it. I hit the bag with no glove. Not always. Once in a while, I'll do a couple of rounds without any gloves. Why? To strengthen the bones in my hand. I might have to take one of you guys out in the street one day. I'm going to hit you in the head. I don't want my hand breaking. So that's why I hit the bag with a bare fist. Not all the time. Okay, because you see the karate guys, they hit the wood with the bare fist and their knuckles become like huge and thick and their bone density increases. I believe in that stuff. I think that stuff makes sense. I think boxers baby their hands too much. That's why they're always breaking their hand. So I'm a big believer in doing bare knuckle bag work, and I have a strong sandbag in the gym. So sometimes I'll hit the sandbag, I'll punch it, I'll kick it, I'll knee it. I'm a big believer in this stuff, and you see Tony Ferguson doing it. So he's a very durable guy. I think in bare knuckle boxing he will go far. I have that feeling, and he does all that kind of body conditioning, which I think is extremely important. Coach, you made my week. Congrats on your team's win. That's from Marco. Marco, you're getting on the board. I don't know. You're hypnotizing me with your script. I don't know what it is. I'm always landing on Marco's question. Thank you, Marco. I really appreciate that. All right, guys. Let's wind it down. 3 more questions. Make them good. Coach, do you know Arthur Beterbiev? That's from Once. I've had dinner with the man. Yes, I know the man. He's a phenomenal boxer. He's a world champion. He just unified the title. I know the guy very well. Well, actually, I shouldn't say I know. I've met the guy. I know he's exactly who you're talking about. He's a phenomenal boxer, killer. Tremendous puncher. I know exactly who you're talking about. I'm a very big fan of his. Coach, do many fighters use sports psychologists? That's from Nicholas Vona. Yes. The answer is yes, they do. All right, guys, let's wind it down. Let's hit the last 2 questions. I answered 1. I said I would do 3. I beg you, Coach, let's spar. That's from King Feeney. King Feeney, do come down to Tristar Gym, and we will glove up, my friend. Omoplata instructional. That's from Sabino. My next instructional is going to be butterfly guard. It's going to come out in the new year, guys. I promise you. Mark my words, okay? I've scheduled it. In the new year, we will have a brand new instructional. And after that, in 2020, my resolution is going to be to release at least 3 more instructionals in 2020. At least 3 more instructionals in 2020. That is going to be my New Year's resolution. To give you guys more content and keep up what I promised I would keep up. I know jiu-jitsuclub.com, guys, check it out. I have 2 instructionals. They were highly well received. I know you guys loved it. I appreciate all the comments and questions, all the comments and then praise and the good reviews. I really appreciate it. I've been planning to do more. Just I'm always traveling. Tomorrow I'm doing this podcast at night because tomorrow I have to fly to Tampa. And then I'm coming back to Montreal on Thursday, and I'm buckling down. I got to get a bunch of guys ready for fights. So I got to get this done. But I have scheduled, I'm glad to say, I have scheduled my next shoot for jiu-jitsuclub.com. It's going to be a butterfly guard video. And I promise you that this video will take your butterfly guard game to the next level. That's a promise. All right. What is your opinion on Israel? Luke King. Oh, God. The question. With such a massive question. Oh, my Lord. All right, Luke King. Listen. It's a very controversial topic. Okay, and we're going to end on this. I would tell you that I would love to see the Muslims and Jews live together in peace like they have for many, many hundreds of years in the past. People don't know this, but the Jews and the Muslims lived together for many, many, many hundreds of years. When Persia overtook Jerusalem, the Jews, the Babylonians, the Nebuchadnezzar, they destroyed the first temple. They removed the Jews from Jerusalem, the first temple. Nebuchadnezzar had them removed and had their temple destroyed. Then their temple was rebuilt. And then again, the Romans scattered out. They scattered out the Jewish people from their temple, the second temple. Now, Jerusalem was later conquered by the Muslim people. The Muslims conquered Jerusalem. Omar bin Khattab, he conquered Jerusalem. When he conquered Jerusalem, the temple at that time was used as a dump site. The pagan Romans at that time didn't care about the temple of Jerusalem. And they wanted to give the Jews a message. They used their temple. Now the walls were destroyed. There's only one wall left. And that wall is believed, the western wall, is believed to be the last standing wall of the temple of Jerusalem. They used that as their dumping site. Omar bin Khattab, the Muslim ruler, ordered it to be cleaned up. And he actually worked. They say he worked on it with his own hand. That's how much respect he had for the Jewish temple. And then after they've been banished for hundreds of years, the Jews were now invited to come back and pray again in their temple. Because previously, the temple was it was forbidden to pray there. It was a dump site. It was forbidden to clean it up. No, this is our dump site. We're not going to let you have a holy temple here. Okay. Now, this has a lot to do with the Romans wanting their religion placed inside the temple. They wanted their statues placed inside the Jewish temple, and the Jews refused. Commandment number 1, thou shalt not have any other God but God. There shall be no other God but God. And this got them expelled from Jerusalem. For hundreds of years, the Jews and Muslims lived together. Now, it's a very complex history. I'm giving you just some highlights. Yes, there was some back and forth. But if you look at there's so many Jewish people in Arabic countries. Why do you think that is? For those of you who are going to say what I'm saying is not true. Why is there Jews in Morocco? Why is there Jews all over Arabic world? Because the Jews were heavily persecuted by the Christians. Now, this is, I'm talking about Ancient Christianity here. We're talking about the first 1,000 years. Okay, I'm not talking about Christianity today, and I'm not talking about Christianity as a whole. I'm just talking to you about, if you look through history, in the Bible, in the Gospels, it's called the Jews are called the children of the devil. Okay, now some Christians, I'm not saying Christians today don't do this. Okay, some Christians thought that was a green light to attack Jews. They're children of the devil. They killed their Messiah. They did this. They did that. To them, they killed the Son of God. They were the bad guys. Where did the Jewish people go? And I can get you rabbis that will give you this sermon. There's books written on how Judaism survived. And many Jewish scholars would attribute it to Islam. If Islam didn't exist, there would be no Judaism today. I don't have the scholars on top of my head, but I've read this, okay? They say, look, if Islam didn't exist, there would be no Judaism. So they flee to Arabic lands, Muslim lands, and they live there. And today they still live there, and they could practice their religion. Maimonides, he's referred to as the second Moses, the greatest Jewish scholar in history. Nobody will argue that. Find me a Jewish guy and ask him, hey, is it true that Maimonides is the greatest scholar in Jewish history? If he doesn't say yes, he doesn't know anything about Judaism. Okay? Maimonides wrote in Arabic. And I'm only saying this because I can tell you that Jews and Muslims, we can't live together. That's all I'm saying. This is why I'm saying this. Maimonides wrote in Arabic. His works were written in Arabic. Why? He was schooled by Arabs. He was learned by Arabs. He was raised by Arabs, and he was allowed to remain Jewish. The Muslims had a lot of religious freedom. You could be any religion you want. Why today can't they live together? There's a lot to that, and I can't get into it, okay? But I wish they can go back. Even if the Jews have the upper hand, even if the Jewish people have the upper hand, let the Muslim people have their rights. Let the Muslim, non-Jewish people have their rights. Maybe they're not allowed to buy lands. Maybe they're not allowed to do this and that. Okay, I get it. You're the first-class citizens. You want to remain this state Jewish, but they were there first. There should be a compromise. They should have their human rights met. The Muslim people and the Jewish people, whoever's on top, if the Muslim people are on top of the Jews or the Jewish people are on top of the Muslims, it doesn't matter. We have to always have human rights be observed. And that's something that's going to reflect positively on both religions. When any religion, either a religion or any religion in the world, doesn't observe human rights, and I don't care if you're from Saudi Arabia, and I don't care if you're from Persia, I don't care where you're from. If you don't observe the human rights of others, you're not doing any service to religion. You're making religion look bad. Okay? And especially in media today, religion looks so horrible. It's so, there's so much propaganda against religion. It's ridiculous. Like, if you just say you even believe in God now, it's like you're a horrible human being. Like, what are you dumb? That's the attitude you get from people. And I don't blame a lot of atheists for thinking like that, because religious people have acted horrifically bad. Horrifically. It's embarrassing. It's ignorant the way not all religious people, I'm saying some religious people have acted in an ignorant way, in a way that makes me not want to be part of them. And it's just, you see so much of that in the media. If you're a religious person, you're supposed to be the most moral human being. You see a preacher guy with a Ferrari and a stripper and a hooker, and that just makes no sense to me. That makes no sense to me. Like, what's the point? Like, that makes no sense to me. But these guys are giving religion a bad name. But if you look at the golden age of Jews and Muslim relations, they observed the right for each other's human rights. You can be educated. You can own a home. You can have your family. You're safe. You're not persecuted. And I understand that there's blood on both sides, and we can blame each other always. We can always point the finger at each other. But the truth of the matter is, the Palestinians did live there first, and there was a practice of ethnic cleansing. Because you're a Palestinian, we're removing you from this land. Because you're a Palestinian, we're removing you from this land. I can't accept ethnic cleansing. I don't care if it was a Muslim country. I wouldn't accept ethnic cleansing. You can't kick that guy out because he's black or Portuguese or French, or you can't kick him out because of his race. Look, in America, we don't kick you out for your race, but if you're anti-American, we'll kick you out for sure. If you're going to commit treason, I get it. If somebody's anti the state, I get it. If somebody says, hey, I'm a communist, maybe the Americans want to remove him because in their constitution, you cannot be a communist and live here. Okay, I get it. Now, if you're a communist and you say, look, I'm a communist at heart, but I abide by your rules, I would say that guy could stay. There's a lot to what I have to say, and I see that. I know I can't cover it all tonight, and I'm not going to. But I would wish that these two cousins would live together, and I will tell you that it's doable. It is really doable. We just got to forget the history. I'll tell you something. I've tried to study personally. I have tried to study Middle Eastern history because I have an interest in it, and I have studied it to a certain extent. It is extremely complex. Like I remember trying to study South American history, incredibly complex. Like you have to spend your whole life studying this just to get an idea of what happened. There is so much to what happened in the Middle East. There is so much. It's crazy. They are so segregated. They are so fractured. Sectarianism is incredibly high there. They're like the groups, the amount of groups that they have is very hard to keep track of. But there was a time where they lived peacefully. There was a time. And for hundreds of years, guys, let nobody tell you otherwise. For hundreds of years. And I think it's doable again. And it's just a question of observing human rights, especially in our day and age today. Listen to my prediction. Listen to my prediction. The future of our countries, all our countries, and you might not like this, but I'm telling you, mark my words, is very lefty. The borders are going to melt more and more. They're going to get grayer and grayer. Why? Generation Z and Generation Alpha are growing up on the internet and they're mingling with every people from all over the world, and they don't see a difference between black, white, gray, purple. They don't see a difference. To them, everybody's human. Yes, your religion and your tradition. If you want to preach Christianity, we already heard it. If you want to preach Judaism, we already heard it. If you want to preach atheism, it's on the internet. We don't need you. We don't need you to tell us all about your religion or your ideology or your methodology. We don't need you. We have the internet now. The scholars are all over the internet, whether they're atheists or not, whether they're theists, whether they're idealists, whether they're materialist philosophers, whatever your ideology is, we have access to it. We don't need you knocking on our door and evangelizing us or telling us how we should live. If we want to know, where everybody wants to know what truth, it's out there. The message has been out there. So people are deciding, look, I want to be Muslim. You want to be Jewish. You want to be atheist. You want to be this. You want to be agnostic. But we're living in a community together. We have an understanding that we're going to live within these rules. And we're going to have peace. And nobody's going to go after one another. The times of trying to spread an ideology with a sword or a force, or those days are gone. Those days are gone. They're growing up so mixed. Yes, they're battling it out, but they're battling it out on the internet. So my neighbor might be a totally different ideology than me, and it doesn't matter. We live by the same rules. The world is moving more in this direction because these young kids are growing up together. They're learning to love one another before they know what their ideologies are. And they're like, hey, yeah, he believes this, but he's still my buddy. It doesn't matter. He doesn't want my blood. He just has this worldview. Maybe your friend is an agnostic. What do you care? You got to know him as a human being. You saw his human side. So you're like, who cares? You know, maybe one day he'll convince me. Maybe I'll convince him. It's all an information. It's all a dialogue now. It's not even a debate. It's a dialogue. Not our generation, guys. We're still throwing punches. We still have really ignorant people who are insulting one another. Generation Z, Generation Alpha, they're not going to have that attitude. I'm telling you. I'm watching them grow before my eyes. My children are this generation. The way that they interact with one another is all humanity first. Ideologies, you can dialogue as much as you want. Convince me, I convince you, whatever. But there's no divide. We're learning to live with one another. They've grown up like this. In the future of Israel, what's the future of Israel? I know I was talking to one of my students who went to Israel. And he said he only went there because he has a right to go there. Because, if you're Jewish, you have the right to a free trip to Israel. They have a name for it. I'm forgetting now what it is. You have a free trip to Israel. So if you're born Jewish, you're a Jewish guy. Free trip. He said, look, I'm not Jewish. I don't care anything about Judaism. I don't care. This was his word, not mine, okay? I'm not really interested in any of that, but I wanted to go visit, get a free trip, see what it's all about. And he says at the end, they put you in a room and they ask you, look, who here is Jewish? What does it mean to be Jewish? And are you Jewish? Do you fit this description? And he's trying to tell me, look, they're trying to make us Jewish again. He goes, but I grew up in Canada. I don't really care about that stuff. Now, as the Jews grow up in Jerusalem themselves, in Israel, they're going to see the whole world becoming a melting pot. And they're going to be like, look, do we want to be the country that practices ethnic cleansing? Do we want to be like these other countries? Like, for instance, look, Japan wants to be homogeneous. They don't want too many foreigners. I respect them. That's their homeland. Israel, I respect it. That's their homeland. However, are these countries going to last? I personally don't think so. They're not going to last. Japan is hoping that technology, for those of you who don't know, I've read a few articles on Japan, and they're saying, look, in 100 years there won't be a Japan because there's not enough birth rate. They sell more. They're the only country in the world. They're the first country in history to sell more diapers for the elderly than for infants. Okay, for those of you who don't know that means like you're headed for collapse, right? There's no youth to come and replace all the workforce, all the population needed to live in these metropolitan cities. Now, one person I was talking to about this told me, yes, but Japan's big hope is that technology will save the day. We won't need so much population because, the robots of the future, which I won't smirk at technology because technology grows at such an incredible rate. So many things I didn't think were possible when I was a kid. I lived to see them. Okay. So they believe, maybe technology is going to take over. We won't need immigration. We won't need to go outside of, bring anybody in from outside of Japan. In my opinion, I live in a country where it's very diverse, and this diversity has enriched my life. I see it that way. The way they see their life is we've been enriched by staying Japanese, and I respect them. I have an incredible respect. That's how they want to live. I have no problem with that. I'm not here to tell them how to live. However, I cannot condone ethnic cleansing. Never. That is, I think, even the most honest person is going to always admit to. Ethnic cleansing is not, it's not correct. Unless your enemy has sworn to kill you, it doesn't make sense to practice ethnic cleansing. If somebody's willing to live under the law, they should live there. That's my opinion. I'm not here to tell other people how to live. Some other people think, no, this is incorrect. Who am I to tell them how to live? I'm not here to tell them how to live. If you're asking me my opinion, this is the one thing that bothers me about the Middle East, is the practice of ethnic cleansing. I think this should be reversed. It's just, there's room for everybody. There's resources for everybody. All right, guys, I think I got a super chat. I hate to miss it because, they paid good money. Habibi, you need to hook up on Muhammad Hijab. The Rogan show, I think, is long due. Have someone knowledgeable to represent Islam, or both of you go. That's from Informed Islam. Well, Informed Islam, look, I would like that. I'm ready to ask or dial. Look, I love to talk. I love to talk about any topic you want to talk about. Any topic whatsoever, let's discuss. As long as there's no, we're doing it well. Because you know what I dislike? The only thing I dislike is when people use ad hominems. They start swearing or cursing or insulting. Then I can't have a dialogue with a guy. Why? Because it makes us look so bad. Look, if you go to university and you disagree with the professor and you insult the professor, he's going to kick you out of the room. If you disagree with the professor, he won't get upset with you. 99% of professors will not get upset with you. They're going to ask you for your source. They're going to cross-examine your claim. They're going to be academic about it. This is how I grew up. So for me, when somebody starts swearing or insulting, that's the only time I delete them. And this is my channel. I want to run it this way. You can call freedom of speech as you want, but this is my channel. I have the freedom to delete your insults. I have the freedom to delete your ignorant slanders. If somebody wants to dialogue with me and they do it in a good way, they can tell me anything. I absolutely love to dialogue. I like to dig deep. Rogan is one of those guys. That's why I have tremendous respect for him. He's willing to talk about anything, and he's a very friendly guy. He could disagree with you, he could agree with you, but he's not going to insult you. When you get into these dialogues where you insult, it adds nothing to the discussion. And actually, it takes away from the discussion, because what happens is you make people angry. And when they're angry, they're illogical, they're irrational. That's when people swear or insult. I think to myself, this guy, he's not actually he's not actually looking for the truth. He's looking here to build his following or his ego. And if you insult me or you insult someone I care about, I might eventually insult you back or put one on your chin. That's the kind of guy I am. So what I like to do is I like to remove myself from that kind of situation. I'll be like, look, you're going to insult, let me walk away. Let me walk away. But if I'm in a situation where I can't walk away, I told you guys, I'm not a pacifist. Like, I know we've talked about this before, but I think that it's the correct way to be. Some people are so aggressive and insulting that it's not worth dialoguing with them. But if you're talking about Joe Rogan, I absolutely respect. Yes, I would 100% dialogue with him. I've actually recently bumped into him in New York. I'm scheduled to be on the Rogan show. I don't know if I'm allowed to say what date. I don't know if Rogan posts it. I don't know how it works, but I am scheduled now to be on the Rogan show. I look forward to hanging out with him. I have suggested he bring a Muslim scholar. I'm not a scholar, guys, but I would definitely dialogue with him about Islam if he wanted to. And I have recommended that he brings somebody who's knowledgeable, because he has had very anti-Islamic personalities, let's call them that. Why not have a balance? Why not? You can't just, condemn somebody, but they never told you their side. And, characters like Sam Harris, who have built a following and made a lot of money. Now, that's the truth. He's made a lot of money, the guy, taking his position. Why? Because there's hungry ears for that position. I'll tell you guys the truth. I know people who have offered to dialogue Sam Harris, and he's asked for a ridiculous amount of money, because he knows that if he dialogues these scholars, he never dialogues Muslim scholars. Never. He never quotes the Quran. Because he knows he's going to get an incredible rebuttal. He tries to interpret the Quran himself. He doesn't even speak Arabic. The Quran tells you how to interpret the Quran. The Quran tells you how to interpret the Quran. How does the Quran tell you to interpret the Quran? The Quran says there are some verses that are very simple. Anybody can understand. But there are some things that are harder to understand. You read the Quran, you don't understand it. It says go to the ulama, go to the scholars. Don't ask your neighbor what it means. Go to the scholar. The scholar's opinion might not be right, but it's the best educated understanding. And that understanding will change throughout the years. The scholars will reflect, think about it, dialogue amongst each other, come to a consensus. That's our position today. Sam Harris on his own, interpreting the Quran is laughable, because number one, he doesn't read Arabic. Number two, he doesn't know the history of Islam as much as he thinks he does. Two, his opinions fall, all of his opinions fall outside the consensus of the scholarly consensus today in Islam. So the way Quran tells you to interpret the Quran, Sam Harris is on the complete opposite. The Quran already told us how to interpret it. It says always stay with the consensus of the scholars. That's what it says. He says that Muslims are ISIS. That's what Islam is. And if you're not ISIS, then you're not really a Muslim. You're just like you're like a shallow Muslim. You're like a Muslim, a fake Muslim. You say you're Muslim, but you're really not. Okay, well, let me tell you what the whole Muslim world calls ISIS. We have a name for ISIS. Okay, the scholars refer to ISIS as the Khawarij. What is the word Khawarij? This word is from the classic time of Islam. Exists. Somebody who's referred to as Khawarij is somebody who's a deviant. That literally means they left the path. They left the consensus. So the consensus of the scholars is this, and they totally disagree with this. They're a fringe group. They're radicals. So the word Khawarij means the people who left the path. The consensus is 99% of Muslim scholars, they will tell you Khawarij is bad. ISIS is bad. Like, don't do anything to say. If they call you for this, completely shut them out. They're completely wrong. Yet you have this one guy who's not even a scholar in religion. Not even a scholar in religion. Doesn't speak Arabic. Doesn't have the same consensus as scholars. Telling us, oh no, that's what you are. I read it for myself, so therefore I declare it to be true. And he quotes hadith. He's not a master of hadith. Anyways, there's so many problems in his opinion. There's so many problems that even a layman like me can correct him. I would love to dialogue with Sam Harris. I've requested to dialogue with him many times. On philosophy and on anything else he wants, including Islam. He thinks he's so learned about Islam. Let's have a dialogue. He won't do it. Okay? Listen, there are good atheists, bad atheists, good Muslims, bad Muslims. There's every type of person. Come and tell us that we're all like, he's trying to label us, is absurd. It's an absurdity. It truly is. Look, if I met Sam Harris, I'll be nice to him. I would try to dialogue with him politely, nicely. I heard he does Jiu-Jitsu. I would even train with him. But there would be a point after us dialoguing. If he continues to keep talking the way he does, I wouldn't have anything to do with him because I find him very insulting. Very insulting for him to say that I'm ISIS. That is extremely insulting. It would be like somebody calling a Christian guy, "Oh, you're KKK," or "Oh, you atheists, you're Nazis." It's really, that's what it is. Like you're saying, "Oh, you guys are Nazis." It's like, no, we're not Nazis. Oh yeah, all of you are Nazis, or you're not really German. It's like, what? Are you crazy? We don't see ourselves like that. We don't interpret our texts like that. We don't see ourselves at all. Listen, if you ever go to a mosque, it's not what they don't tell you go kill people. The total opposite. Anyways, I would love to dialogue the guy. I'm back on the Rogan show. If Rogan wants to talk about Islam, I'm happy to. If he wants to talk about fighting, training, anything, absolutely anything, philosophy, science, history. If he wants to talk about my cool coffee mugs that you guys should be buying, whatever, I'm open to that. All right, guys, with that said, I think we ended it on a good note. Thank you all for tuning in. I like you. I hope you're going to like, share, and comment. And I will see you all in the next episode. Thank you.